We the Property Brrrrothas. The Property Brrrrothas.
What's up, fam? It's another Crafting Goals Friday. I am your host, Jordan, along with the number ninjas himself, Drew, and we are the Property Brrrrothas.
What's up?
Drew.
What's up?
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Ooh.
How you doing?
Man, I'm good, dude. This is going to be a really interesting episode that we got today. What you got? You got that's nice. Is it good?
Yes. This is so good. It is. It's very scrumptious. Little spicy. I typically have Bloody Marys early in the morning. You know, after
your morning's off
banger.
rough.
I do.
Crazy.
You know, it's a reminder to slow down, right?
Yeah, dude. You need to slow down, and that's very apropos because we're going to talk about kind of slowing down a little bit. So today we're kind of diving into a really wild real estate story, bro. And
man.
It's interesting because it got our wheels turning. So this Crafting Goals Friday, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be like none other. So listen, we are going to enjoy ourselves like we always do on this Crafting Goals Friday. But we're also going to break down a YouTube video that we watched and kind of give a different perspective, if you will, a different opinion, and just kind of something that is counterintuitive to what we saw and what we watched. So Drew,
absolutely.
Talk about it.
Well, here's what's cool is we just went through the entire steps with respect to buying, rehabbing, renting, refinancing. And we were supposed to be talking about repeat, but I think it's super important for us to really peel back some of the layers, especially some of the layers that were exposed by Stephanie Kabidi on her YouTube post, where she said that she bought 22 properties and now she regrets it. And, I think it really is kind of an undertone to how we talk about actually preparing and purchasing right, rehabbing correctly, all the numbers, you call me the numbers ninja. And I think it's super important to do those numbers. You have to do the numbers to make sure that this thing is actually going to pencil out, right? And that includes not only buying, but that includes the rehab. Like, what exactly is it going to take to get that rehab ready to rock and roll so that you can force value into the property? But also, you're not only forcing value into the property, you're also making sure that you don't have any situations. What do they call that? The situation. That
Situations.
dude has a six pack like crazy. The situation. Where he from? You know what I'm talking about?
The Jersey Shore.
Yeah, there's a situation going on. We don't want that situation, right?
That's funny.
I don't want a situation to come up after I've completed the rehab and I refinanced. Now you've got these surprises popping up. So I think I'm exposing way too much of the story. So go ahead. What do you got in store for the people?
So listen, we're not here. I want to preface this, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me.
Hold on. What are you drinking?
Okay. It is a Crafting Goals Friday. This is just a nice little lager that, my boy Michelob. Shout out to Michelob Ultra.
Okay. All right.
Let's go.
Wow, you fancy.
I know, I'm fancy. Hey, it's fancy when you drink it out of a glass, right? Anyways, so ladies and gentlemen, we're not here to hate on anybody.
No.
Or throw shade on anybody's game. We just want to offer a different perspective, and we're here to kind of chop it up, learn from it, and just kind of keep leveling up on our goals, the way that that we are educating our community.
And here's what's cool, man. Like Stephanie Kabidi, I mean, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Kabidi.
Sorry.
She is killing it out there, man.
Yeah, man.
She is out there. Like, she got 22 properties with her partner in 18 months.
That's dope.
And she only spent like $6,800, right?
That's dope.
She did
fire. I mean, I wish I could do that.
Dude, she was out there blowing it up. But today we want to talk about, like, why is she having regret, and what could she have done differently so that she could grow a little bit slower, possibly,
Uh-huh.
and and a little bit safer so that she could not be, I guess, dependent on the income of her properties.
Exactly, dude. So like real estate is a marathon, right? It ain't a sprint, So we need to kind of like break it down and like craft this thing kind of the right way. You know what I mean? Like it's a grow rich, slow type of game. So listen,
Right.
we are
Hey,
going
but dude,
to
compared to 30 years in a cubicle, it's a faster
bro.
way to freedom if you move smart.
Yeah,
Right.
right. 100%. 100%. So, we're going to kind of break down, what she talked about. Okay. And, some of the challenges that she faced and what she's regretting. And then we'll also kind of offer a different opinion, of what we would have done, in her situation and what we would have done differently. And then we'll just kind of wrap it up with, hey, so now what? Right. And how do we move forward? Okay. Because I think this is a really critical step, Drew, especially in the BRRRR space, to really let the audience know that when you get to the point where you are ready to scale, okay, and you're ready to repeat, okay, and granted, this isn't the repeat episode, okay, but, I just want to throw this out there that, it's very important that you really have a focused game plan, right? You begin with the end in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
You
we talked
have
about
to
that
begin with the end in
episode.
mind.
Yeah. So let me break this down real quick. So what happened with Stephanie is that she bought 22 units. I think she bought them extremely quickly. Like, the goal was to get as many units under her belt as possible. She chased the cash flow without doing the proper due diligence. She didn't rehab the properties fully. It doesn't seem like there was a lot of mechanical inspection, so like there were some surprises that popped up. She ran out of the reserves. She had to start using credit cards to kind of, shore those situations up, and now she's kind of stuck and she's frustrated, right?
Yeah, 100%, man.
So what went wrong, right? What went wrong?
Yeah, well, I think that, based on what we watched, from her story is that she was out there chasing doors,
Yeah,
and
man.
it was like she was chasing a door count, like she was chasing Pokemon cards. You know what I mean?
Big
Like,
time.
gotta
Big
catch them
time.
all.
Yeah, you got to collect them. Got to collect them. It don't matter what you look like. I'm gonna just collect each and every one of them. What power do they have? It don't matter. I got a card, right?
Charizard,
Yes, dude.
duplex, triplex,
So
sixplex.
yeah, man, and she actually got all of those. She got like a duplex. She got a triplex. She's like, this is one of my
Yeah, she killing the
sixplexes.
game. Like I said, she was killing it. She was out there like bam, 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 bam. Yeah.
Right, right. And now the only thing she's catching is late fees.
Right.
Mm. So,
Oof.
the other piece is that, like, it doesn't seem like she didn't do a lot of due diligence on the mechanicals, man.
Yeah.
So, like, one of her biggest challenges is that, the reason why she wants to get out of the game is that she's like, dude, these expenses are piling up. I got to replace my roof. She didn't talk about HVAC, plumbing, or foundation, but all of those are ticking time bombs if you did not really prepare for that rehab properly. Like, one
Right.
of the things that we talk about is when you're going through the rehab process, you need to make sure that you analyze every aspect of that rehab. It's easy to say, all right, you know what? The roof is only, 8 years old. I'll replace it later. But imagine if you replace that roof right now, when you go to do your refinance and you tell the appraiser, we talked about this. You tell the appraiser, hey, I did the roof, I replaced everything that's in the walls, I got the plumbing, I got the electrical. They are thinking about the fact that there's longevity in this home. This home is pretty much brand new with all of the mechanicals, right?
Right.
So that's going to add added value to your home, right? And so, it's very easy, I think, from a rookie's point of view, it's very easy to say, you know what, I'm just going to do the bare necessity just to just throw some paint on the wall, maybe replace the floor. maybe paint the cabinets in the
Right.
kitchen
Well,
and
because
call it a
budget's a
day.
real thing, right? I mean, your budget's a real thing. And we talk about that in one of our episodes about how to rehab right. And, that could have been one of her challenges. She might have been like, look, I don't have this budget. So, I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm only going to do ABC, right? And if you don't fix it up front, Drew, it may come back to bite you, right? It's going to come up and creep and eat into that cash flow and really kind of fix your bank account later, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we talk about is you don't buy on emotion, you buy
No,
on the
dude.
numbers,
That's
right? You
right.
got to put it into your spreadsheet. And we talk about spreadsheets, and I know the audience is probably like, damn, them property brothers and they spreadsheets, right?
Ooh, good. Well,
But
but it's real though, man. You got to crunch the numbers. Hey,
you
this is
got
my
it, man.
saying, man. Men lie, women lie, but you know what don't lie?
Numbers.
Numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie.
The numbers don't lie,
So,
man.
100%. And I think that this is where Stephanie kind of maybe skipped a step,
It's possible.
unfortunately. I
It's
mean,
very possible.
obviously, and we don't know her story, but based off of what she is kind of talking about in her
Mm-hmm.
video, it
Mm-hmm.
seems as though there's a lot of hidden things in the wall that are coming up and biting her in the butt, right?
Right, 100%, man. And it's like, you kind of like bought on the hype and you didn't, buy on the hard numbers.
Yeah. So, like you said, dude, real estate, it doesn't care about your feelings. It only respects the math. And so, here's what we would have done differently. If you put the numbers into the spreadsheet, and we talk about this all the time, if you put the numbers into your spreadsheet, our spreadsheet calculates what is our maximum allowable offer based on the after repair value. So after we've gone in and repaired everything, including the roof, replacing the mechanicals if they need be, the water, the electrical, we have our spreadsheet that tells us what our maximum allowable offer is. Say that like 7 times fast. It's difficult, especially after a spicy Bloody Mary. It's very difficult to say that. I can't even say it slow, but I'm going to try. All right. So once you put all those numbers in, you know what your top revenue number is. So you go in and you make an offer to the seller and say, hey, look, this is what I can afford to purchase this home at, because I know that once we are done with the rehab, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
appraise at this. And the bank's only going to give me, depending, like we talked about this last time, 70, 75, or 80%, depending
Yeah,
on your
stick to it.
experience and depending on how long you've held on to that property. That's the amount of money that I'm going to get. Right.
Yeah,
So you should
right.
know your numbers,
Right,
and
dude.
you got
So,
to fully inspect those mechanicals.
yeah, so it's like your purchase price, right? What you're coming in
Yes.
at, your rehab price, and all of those have got to be less than 75% of the
Yeah.
after repair value. All of it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And one of the other things that I found interesting in Stephanie's story is that she said, "Me and my partner, me and my partner."
Oh,
Right.
me and
So
my partner.
right, 100%. So what does your partner bring into the table? Like, is it money? Is there
Yeah.
experience? Are you both bringing money to the table but no experience? Like you
Mhm.
haven't been through this process before? And
Yeah.
again, we're not pointing fingers or anything like that. We're just saying that,
Yeah. This
when
is an experience. This is something to learn from. Yeah.
yeah,
This
man.
is
So like,
totally educational.
yeah, if you're going out and getting a partner, you both don't want to be rookies, right?
Right.
You both don't want you need to bring a certain skill set to the table to protect yourself. So, if I'm coming to you, Jordan, I know you're bringing the money, right?
Yeah.
I need the money and you bringing some experience too, right?
Yeah.
So, there's something that you're bringing to the table. Maybe I have the negotiating skills and I can actually get the deal, right? There's
Right.
something that we're both bringing to the table. You want to make sure that that is fully encompassing of the entire experience of the deal, right? And what I'm seeing here is that there are holes in these deals that kind of fell through. So you got to vet your partner. Skill matters more than hype.
Yeah, 100%, man. And just to kind of piggyback on that, go back to the buy phase, right? You absolutely have to buy right. You have to buy undervalue. And again, you know, we are assuming she's in the BRRRR space, but based on her economy of scale, I'm not quite sure, but you absolutely have to buy undervalue. And
100%.
the numbers have to work. Your rehab has to work out, and you've got to rehab all of the big ticket items, man. Get them out of the way. So like Drew said about 10 minutes ago, you don't go back a month later and it's like, man, we got to replace this roof and I think she spent about $5,000, trying to replace a roof, right?
Right.
Where if you're
can you give me your roofer? $5,000? Did you
like
say
it.
$5,000 for a roof?
I like it. I like it.
Well, do you though?
$5,000, like, bro.
Dude, that's incredible. That is incredible.
Exactly. It comes back to doing your due diligence, and really laying down, what are your goals? Okay. Crafting Goals Friday, right? I said this at the beginning of the segment. Begin with the end in mind, people, and then prioritize those goals. Once you understand where you're trying to go with any property, whether it's one property or 22 properties, know where the end game is, know where the finish line is, and what you intend to do with it. Do you intend to refinance out of all of them in a few years?
Or you gonna flip it?
Are you gonna flip them? She may have a lot of equity, and I think she talked about that, Drew.
Yeah, she did.
She may have a bunch of
she
equity.
Is equity rich and cash poor. Which means to me, like, is she following the BRRRR?
Yeah. Are you refinancing? Are you pulling some of that equity out?
Here's what we know. She has a lot of equity in these deals, and she has bills that needs to be paid.
Right. That's why she's cash
about
poor.
Driving. She said, I'm driving for this property to this property, and I'm wasting gas. Y'all know I got 22 properties. I don't need to show all y'all.
So again, another thing we would do differently is, have your tenants.
No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, have your tenants pay for the utilities, and those are little things that you can do to really help your cash flow, right? So listen, if you buy right, you force that equity, you can refinance when you need to. Okay. Pull that cash out and reposition your whole game, because equity, quite possibly could equal freedom. And you know what, Drew, there's another aspect of her video that, really touched me. And I think it touched a lot of viewers of hers, because she has a big following,
Yeah, she does. Love it.
She sounds like she is a woman of faith, which is awesome. And so she talked about in her video that she felt like this was God kind of leading her in a different direction. And listen, we get it, man. And, as men of faith, we are right with you, So sometimes God redirects us through those hard lessons. I believe that fear, that regret, that anxiety, that those are all parlor tricks of, the enemy, if you will.
100%.
So
I 100% agree.
So without going down a rabbit hole too much, to alienate too many viewers. But for me personally, this may be the road that might be painful. These might be speed bumps that she needs to go through. And it might be painful now, but if she adapts, that I believe God will see her through this. And, maybe in 10 years, because we said that real estate is a get rich slow game. And that could be where God is trying to pivot her, to understand that.
Yeah. Like I've gone through it, even in this real estate game, I've got my butt kicked because I made poor decisions. And I didn't blame it on God. I just said, you know what? I was ignorant. And now I know. I've learned this. So I think that, one of the things that, again, we're trying to teach and kind of protect our audience from is some of the mistakes that can be made. And part of that is you've got to go in prepared. You have to go in with your eyes wide open and understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. So, I think that a lot of times people paint these, rosy colored lenses and they're like, dude, all you got to do is invest and tomorrow you're going to be rich. And guess what? These people paying their rent and you just taking money out of it and living off of that. And that is not the process. It's not the process, right? Yes. In order for us to do the BRRRR method, you need to buy. Hopefully you're using other people's money, right? You're financing with a fix and flip loan. Prior to that, you needed to run your numbers. You needed to see exactly what are the repairs, including those mechanicals, including the roof, the AC, everything, all of the stuff that we continuously preach, right? If you're going in there blind or going in there not knowing, which is ignorance, hopefully after your first one, you're like, dang, I made some mistakes. Let me correct that, right? Let me correct that. So then the second one that you got, maybe you don't make those same mistakes, right? So all we're saying is that there is a road, there's a pathway to success, and not every BRRRR is going to be perfect, right? We want them to be perfect, but there's stuff hidden in the walls that we can't predict. But it really shouldn't be a situation where you're like, damn, I was $30,000 off. Or I was $20,000 off. There's something at that point in time, I would be saying, God is telling me to stop doing what I'm doing, right? And I made that's some bad choices, right? But if you actually did your numbers properly, there should be a 10 to 15% wiggle room that you built into your equation. And, I just, I get frustrated when people blame their mistakes on God.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if she's blaming her mistakes on God. I want to preface this with what she said. I'm not trying to put words in her mouth, right? We're not putting words in her mouth. What she said was God is leading me in a different directions. But all we are saying is if you take control, if you got your hands on the wheel, right, and you are running your numbers, okay?
Yeah.
And if you get into situations, like Drew likes to say, and you got some speed bumps, don't let fear, don't let anxiety, don't let regret kind of take your hands off the wheel, right?
I agree. Yeah. Dude, so this brings me to something that we didn't discuss earlier, but she has the opportunity to maybe offload some of those properties. And we did talk about maybe a 1031 exchange, right?
Mhm.
So maybe she can say, all right, I've got 22 units. Maybe I can take some of those units, find another deal that actually works the way that a true BRRRR works, finance into that, build that property up, and then refinance that property after she's forced value into it, right? There are ways to navigate and potentially save her portfolio so that she can start to accomplish what it is that she's talking about, right? So getting some equity that equals freedom, cash flow, some breathing room. You need all of that. And I think that there's still a way for her to navigate some of this stuff.
100%, 100%, man. So, dude, man, this was great, man. This was a great Crafting Goals Friday, man. I think that we make it clear that, you need to, when you enter this space, that you have to first decide what is your end game, right? Begin with that end in mind. And then start by putting first things first and prioritizing those things to navigate that and navigate the buy situation and navigate the rehab, okay, and the renting and the refinance, and then the all important repeating the process to scale, but scale at a pace that will work for you, right?
Absolutely.
You know, we believe that for the Property Brothers, we believe that if you are buying a property per year, you're in a good situation, right?
Beautiful situation. Absolutely.
You are 100 in a beautiful situation. So, you know, let the math do the talking. I said this back in, I don't know, episode 1, episode 2, right? It's just math. The math has always got to weigh over the emotion. Always.
Yeah.
And run your numbers, y'all. Like your freedom 100% depends on it. Your financial freedom depends on it, because ultimately, if you want this to work, then yeah, I mean, it does depend on it.
And you know, here's what's funny, dude. Like, if you go back and you look at the video, there's some comments in there, and you know, there's folks that are doing the exact same thing that we're doing. So, like, one of the comments was, "Hey, a few questions I have. Since I own a rental, where did she find this $5,000 roof replacement? That sounds very low." And then she says, "Equity rich and cash flow poor." So that suggests that she should refinance and cash out some money or raise the rent, right? And then I am not sure if I have seen a non-multi-unit complex where the utilities are included in the rent. Did she allow for enough rent to adequately cover the utility bills? And like, all of those are really valid points to, you know, help her situation out. She kind of needs to rethink her processes, I believe.
Right. 100%, man. Dude, I mean, I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head.
Absolutely. There's a guy that I follow. He talked about how if you buy one property a year, right? You run the numbers and make sure that that property can cash flow. You don't have to come out of pocket. And you put a 15-year mortgage on that property. So imagine, let's say you're starting when you're like 20 years old, man. By the time you are 35, the first property, and you're doing it one property a year, by the time that you are 35, that first property is now completely paid off, right? So let's say that property is
Powerful.
worth $200,000.
Yeah.
Now you can go and refinance that one property and pull out, let's say you only pull out $100,000, you know, so a 50% loan, $100,000. That's $100,000 that you can now live on for that entire year.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? That second year comes up. What's up? You got another property that has paid off, and now you can refinance that one and pull out $100,000. I mean, that is a extremely powerful situation. So now, by the time you are 45, you have paid off that one.
Yep.
Right? You paid off that one that you refinanced 15 years ago, and you just repeat the cycle. And you've got an incredible momentum going where you are living off of the property, you're living off of the energy of the equity. I mean, it's
Yeah, man.
incredible. If you set yourself up properly, this is like we said, a 10-year strategy where you can have financial freedom if you're doing it correctly.
And then, you know, and just to kind of piggyback on that, to your point, mortgages are tools. You know, we don't believe that they are traps. No. If you use them correctly. And Drew just explained a situation, right, where you can get a 15-year mortgage. Even if you have a 30-year mortgage, people.
Yeah.
You do not have to necessarily stay in this 30-year mortgage, right, or pay the minimum for the next 30 years. You know, an extra $50 on a 30-year mortgage can potentially knock off like 4 years of payments. An extra 200, maybe like $250, that can potentially knock off like 15 years of payments.
So
So we're bringing up on the screen share right now, y'all. Like, check this out. If you are listening to us on podcasts, head on over to YouTube, check out the screen share, because what we got right now, people, is we are showing you how if you add a little bit of extra money, you can pay off your note a little bit faster. Okay.
So looking at this particular loan, I owe $116,000. It's about a year old, right? So if I start to inject an extra $50 a month, there we go, $50. I'm knocking off almost 5 years off of this loan, right? And if I inject an extra $250 a month, knocked off almost 14 years. That's half
That's
of
crazy.
the loan. That's half of the loan. That's incredible.
Just for an extra $250.
Exactly. For an extra $250. And I mean, that's if you really want to get from underneath these mortgages, right? You make some extra payments and those will start to knock off years. It's incredible. I mean, so looking at this loan, that's only 15 years from now if I add an extra $250.
Well,
That's
and I think, yeah, but back to Stephanie's situation, I believe, her challenge was the cash flow, right? So the challenge is how can you do this?
I don't think it was the cash flow. It wasn't the cash flow, because she was saying that she was making like what, $8,000 a month. The challenge was the fact that she did not take into consideration that when she was doing the rehab, she should have replaced all the big ticket items that could potentially haunt her. I mean, she's 18 months into her journey, bro. And she's complaining that, she's making $8,000 a month, but that doesn't take care of her expenses because she's got all these different things that are popping up. She's paying for utilities outside of the mortgage. She's paying for roofs. She's paying, who knows what all of those different expenses are. So it's not the cash flow that she's complaining about. It's the fact that she did not prepare properly for this journey.
Yeah. Well, maybe that should be what she should pivot to and, kind of reevaluate. And that's what we're educating you on, people, is to reevaluate, begin with that in mind and know exactly what you're getting into and get all those ducks in a row, right?
Yeah, man.
Starting with starting with the potential properties that you're prospecting, buying them right, rehabbing them right, etc. So man, that's good. That's some good stuff.
This
slow
is
and steady.
I love it. I love it, dude. This is incredible. Thank you for sharing Crafty Friday. Yes,
dude,
sir.
This is good, man. Any closing thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, my closing thought is, man, we want you to be successful and we want you to learn from our mistakes. We want you to do your research, go out there and listen to some of the other people's journeys and, figure out what path is the right path for you.
Yeah.
We are showing you what we feel works for us. And let me tell you something, we've screwed it up too, right? We
screwed the pooch big time.
Big time. But what we're telling you is that if you follow this path, you pull your emotions out of it, you look at the numbers, you look at where the economy is going, and you just execute according to the plan that we've laid, it should be a fairly not as painful as it could be, right?
Yeah.
We're taking some of that
there's gonna be some pain
away.
points. Yeah.
There's going to be some pain. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But nothing worth going after is.
Exactly. Facts, bro. It ain't, listen, you can get caught in that hype of stacking doors.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get caught in the hype, man.
I wanted to have 100.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and look at you now, man. You trying to get about all of these rehab. You're like, man, every day we talking about, man, if I could just get this one across the finish line. And if I could get this one across the finish line. You know what I mean? And but what's harder? What's harder is staying the course and stacking wealth, because financial freedom is not crafted in a year. 15 months.
You said craft.
18 months. You see what I did there? You know?
Yes.
So it's got to be, you got to craft it one wise move at a time. So, people, man, we are so thankful that you joined us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
On this Crafting Goals Friday. Man, follow us, like, subscribe on YouTube, on all our socials. We'll put the handles there, man, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. All right, so for Drew, I'm Jordan, and we are the Property Brrrrothas.
The Property Brrrrothas.
Peace.
The Property Brrrrothas.
The Property Brothers was produced and edited by the hosts. All rights are reserved by the Property Brothers LLC, and the hosts are operating exclusively on behalf of the Property Brothers LLC. Please consult appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business advice. Nothing on this show should be considered professional advice. We appreciate you all for following our journey. It would mean the world to us if you could like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. God bless.